The shower was running at 2 a.m., and my wife thought I was asleep. I'd been lying in the dark for 20 minutes, staring at the ceiling of our bedroom in the house I'd built with my own hands 12 years ago. Not metaphorically, I'm a licensed electrician. I wired every outlet, installed every fixture, ran every circuit in this 4-bedroom colonial outside of Richmond, Virginia. I knew this house the way a surgeon knows the human body. Every hum, every creak, every whisper of air through the ducts. So when my wife's phone buzzed 3 times on the nightstand at 1:47 a.m., and she slipped out of bed thinking I was dead to the world, I noticed. I didn't move, didn't open my eyes, just listened. She padded barefoot across the hardwood floor, paused in the hallway, and then I heard the bathroom door close and the shower turn on. The shower. At 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. My wife, Vanessa, was a real estate broker who had to be at her office by 7:30 every morning. She never showered at night, let alone in the middle of it. I reached over and picked up her phone. She'd left it on the nightstand, which was unusual. Vanessa guarded that phone like it contained nuclear launch codes. But tonight, in her rush, she'd forgotten it. The screen was still lit. 3 messages from a contact saved as staging vendor. Can't stop thinking about Sunday. You left your earring in my truck. Wear the black one next time. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Something much worse happened. Everything suddenly made sense. The Sunday open houses that ran 4 hours longer than they should. The new lingerie I found in the laundry that she never wore for me. The way she'd started going to the gym at odd hours, coming home already showered. The distant look in her eyes when I talked about our anniversary trip. I put the phone back exactly where she'd left it and closed my eyes. When Vanessa came back to bed 10 minutes later, smelling like soap and secrets, I pretended to be asleep. She settled in beside me, and within minutes, her breathing went slow and even. She slept like someone with nothing on her conscience. I lay there until dawn, thinking, here's what I didn't do. I didn't confront her. I didn't throw things. I didn't pack a bag and storm out like some wounded animal. I'd watched enough guys in my crew lose everything in a divorce because they let their emotions drive the car. My buddy Pete found out his wife was cheating, punched a hole through the drywall, and she used that to get a restraining order. Lost his house, his kids, everything. I wasn't going to be Pete. The next morning, I kissed Vanessa goodbye like nothing had changed. Told her I loved her. Watched her drive off in her white Lexus to sell overpriced houses to people who couldn't afford them. Then I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and made a plan. First call was to my cousin Ray, who practiced family law in Norfolk. Hadn't spoken to him in 2 years, but blood is blood. I told him everything. His advice was immediate and specific. Don't say a word to her. Don't move out. Don't touch her phone again. Get me evidence that'll hold up, and we'll bury her. Second call was to a guy named Terrence Cooper, a private investigator Ray recommended. Former military police, meticulous, discreet. We met at a diner that afternoon. I showed him the text I'd photographed. He nodded like he'd seen this 1,000 times, because he had. Give me 2 weeks, Terrence said. I'll give you everything you need. I went back to work, rewired a dental office in Henrico County, installed a panel upgrade for a restaurant in Shockoe Bottom. Came home every evening, ate dinner with my wife and our 2 kids, helped my daughter Lily with her algebra homework, watched my son Derek demolish opponents in his online game. Normal. Completely, perfectly normal. Vanessa didn't suspect a thing. Why would she? I was the same reliable, predictable, boring husband I'd always been. The guy who paid the mortgage on time, who coached Derek's baseball team, who never raised his voice or asked uncomfortable questions. She'd been counting on that for years. 2 weeks later, Terrence handed me a manila envelope at the same diner where we'd first met. His face was grim. It's worse than you think, he said. The envelope contained photographs, phone records, and a typed summary of his findings. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was having 3. The staging vendor was a man named Craig Hollis, a mortgage broker she'd been sleeping with for approximately 18 months. But there were 2 others. A personal trainer at her gym going back about 8 months. And the one that hit me hardest, my next-door neighbor, Paul Decker. The man I'd helped install a deck last summer. The man whose kids played with my kids. The man who'd stood in my backyard at our 4th of July cookout, drinking my beer and shaking my hand, while apparently sleeping with my wife every Wednesday afternoon when his wife took their girls to piano lessons. I stared at the photographs. Vanessa and Craig in a parking garage. Vanessa and the trainer leaving a hotel on Broad Street. Vanessa and Paul, right there, in Paul's house, 30 feet from where my children slept. How long for Paul? I asked. Terrence checked his notes. At least 2 years. Maybe longer. 2 years. My son Derek was 12. My daughter Lily was 10. I did the math. Lily was conceived right around the time Paul and his wife moved in next door. I looked at Terrence. I need a DNA test. For both kids. He gave me the name of a lab. Discreet, fast, legally admissible results. I collected samples that weekend. Hair from their brushes, the inside of their water bottles. Sent everything off, and waited. While I waited, I kept playing the part. Vanessa planned a dinner party for the following Saturday and invited the Deckers. Of course she did. I watched her and Paul across my dining room table, the way they carefully avoided looking at each other, the way Paul's wife Jenna chatted obliviously about her new kitchen remodel. I smiled, poured wine, grilled steaks to perfection, and felt absolutely nothing. The DNA results came back on a Thursday. Derek was mine. Lily was not. I sat in my truck in the lab parking lot for a long time after reading that report. Lily, my little girl. The one who looked nothing like me and everything like the man next door. The one who'd inherited Paul's dimples and his curly hair and his left-handedness. Details I'd noticed 100 times and never once let myself question. I called Ray. He answered on the first ring. The DNA came back, I said. One's mine. One isn't. She's the neighbor's. Ray was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "This changes the financial picture significantly. In Virginia, if you can prove paternity fraud, it affects everything. Custody, support, division of assets. She's been collecting child support from you under false pretenses for 10 years. What do I do?" "You do nothing yet. We file when we're ready, and when we file, we hit her with everything at once. She doesn't get time to prepare, doesn't get time to spin a story, doesn't get time to hide assets. One shot." "How long?" "Give me a month to prepare the filing. In the meantime, get your finances in order. Open a separate account. Document everything. And for God's sake, don't let her know anything's changed." That month was the hardest of my life. Every morning I woke up next to a woman who'd been lying to me for years. Every evening I played catch with Derek and helped Lily with her homework, knowing that the little girl calling me daddy shared DNA with the man who waved at me from across the fence every morning. But I held it together. I smiled, I cooked, I went to Derek's games and Lily's school plays. I was the perfect husband and father, because that's what the evidence needed me to be. Every calm day, every normal interaction, every peaceful evening was another nail in Vanessa's coffin. She couldn't claim I was unstable if I was the most stable person in the room. I did one thing during that month that Ray didn't know about. I went to see Paul Decker. Not at his house. I waited until a Wednesday afternoon when I knew his wife was at piano with the girls, and I drove to his office. Paul sold commercial insurance. Nice office, decent car, respectable career. The kind of guy you'd trust with a handshake. I walked in without an appointment. His secretary said he was busy. I told her I'd wait. When Paul came out of his office and saw me sitting in the lobby, the color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. "Ryan," he said, "what are you doing here?" "Let's take a walk, Paul." We walked to a bench outside his building. I didn't raise my voice, didn't clench my fists, sat down beside him like we were old friends catching up. "I know about you and Vanessa," I said. He started to deny it. I held up my hand. "Don't. I have photographs, phone records, and a DNA test proving that Lily is your biological daughter. So let's skip the part where you lie to me and get to the part where you listen." Paul looked like a man watching his own funeral. His mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "I'm filing for divorce. When I do, your name is going to come up. Your wife is going to find out. Your kids are going to find out. There's nothing I can do about that, and honestly, I don't care about protecting you. But I'm giving you this one chance to get ahead of it. Tell Jenna yourself, before she hears it from a lawyer." "Why would you give me that?" he asked. "Because your daughters didn't do anything wrong. And hearing it from their father is better than hearing it from a courtroom." Paul started crying. Right there on that bench outside his insurance office in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. I sat there and watched him cry, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, nothing. He was just a weak man, who'd made weak choices, and now those choices had consequences. I stood up. "One more thing. When you talk to Jenna, you tell her the truth. All of it. If I find out you've minimized this or tried to make yourself look better, I'll make sure the DNA results end up in every mailbox on our street." I drove away and never spoke to him again. The day Ray filed the divorce papers was a Friday. He'd timed it deliberately. Vanessa was served at her office at 4:30 p.m., right when she was getting ready to leave for the weekend. I know because Ray had someone there to observe her reaction. She called me 17 times in 20 minutes. I didn't answer. I was at home, calmly packing her belongings into boxes, not throwing them, not destroying them, folding her clothes neatly, wrapping her jewelry in tissue paper, stacking her shoes by pair. I wanted her to come home and see that I'd been methodical, organized, deliberate, that this wasn't a man having a breakdown, This was a man who'd made a decision. She came through the door at 5:15, mascara running, divorce papers clutched in her hand. "Ryan, what is this? What the hell is this?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd made my plan a month and a half ago. The kids were at my mother's house. I dropped them off after school with a bag packed for the weekend. "Sit down, Vanessa." "I will not sit down. You need to explain to me what is happening right now." "What's happening is that I'm divorcing you." The papers explain the grounds: adultery, paternity fraud, and financial deception. She went white. "Paternity fraud? Lily isn't mine," I said. "She's Paul's. I have the DNA test." The sound she made wasn't a scream or a cry. It was something in between, a kind of animal noise that came from deep in her chest. She collapsed into a chair and stared at me like I was someone she'd never met. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." "Ryan, please. We can work through this. Every marriage has problems. We can go to counseling, we can—" "Vanessa, you've been sleeping with 3 different men. You let me raise another man's child as my own for 10 years. You looked me in the eyes every single day and lied. There is no counseling for this." "3? Her voice was barely a whisper. "You know about all 3? Craig Hollis, Tyler Briggs at the gym, and Paul Decker, who's probably having a very difficult conversation with Jenna right about now." She put her head on the table and sobbed. I sat there and let her. After about 5 minutes, she looked up. "What do you want?" "The house. It's in my name, and I built half of it with my own hands. Full custody of Derek, joint custody of Lily, with Paul having the right to petition for parental rights if he chooses. You pay child support for Derek based on your income, and you don't contest any of it. That's insane. No judge would give you—" "Any judge would, once they see the DNA test and the investigator's report. My lawyer's already spoken with the Henrico County Family Court. Virginia takes paternity fraud very seriously. You don't want this going to trial, Vanessa. Trust me." "Are you threatening me?" "No. I'm telling you what's going to happen. The difference is that a threat implies you have a choice." She stared at me. In 12 years of marriage, I'd never spoken to her like this. I'd never spoken to anyone like this. But somewhere in the last 6 weeks, the man who never made waves had drowned, and someone harder had surfaced in his place. "You've changed," she said. "No. I just stopped pretending." Vanessa moved out that weekend. She went to her sister's apartment in Short Pump and hired a lawyer, a woman named Patricia Vaughn, who had a reputation for aggressive divorce litigation. I expected her to fight. Ray expected it too. We were ready. What we didn't expect was what happened next. The following Monday, Paul Decker's wife Jenna called me. She'd found out everything. Paul had confessed, as I'd instructed, and Jenna was devastated but also furious in a way that made her incredibly focused. "I want to help you," she said. "I want to make sure they both pay for what they did." "Jenna, you don't owe me anything. This isn't about owing." Vanessa sat at my dinner table. She hugged my children. She complimented my cooking while sleeping with my husband in my house. I want her to lose everything. Jenna became an unexpected ally. She had information I didn't. Text messages Paul had saved, photos Vanessa had sent, even a video Vanessa had recorded in the Deckers' master bedroom. Jenna turned it all over to Ray, who added it to our evidence file. Vanessa's lawyer came back with a counteroffer 2 weeks later. Vanessa would agree to the divorce but wanted 50-50 custody of both children, the house sold and proceeds split, and no alimony from either party. Ray laughed when he read it. She's dreaming. He filed a motion for emergency custody based on the paternity fraud. The judge, an older man named Harrison Webb, who'd been on the bench for 30 years, reviewed the DNA evidence, the investigator's report, and Jenna Decker's submitted materials. He awarded me temporary full custody of Derek and ordered a paternity hearing regarding Lily. Vanessa tried to spin the narrative. She told friends I was controlling, manipulative, that I'd been emotionally abusive for years. She posted vague messages on social media about toxic relationships and surviving narcissists. She told her parents that I'd been spying on her, that I'd violated her privacy, that the private investigator was evidence of my obsessive behavior. None of it worked. I had 12 years of coaching rosters with my name on them, 12 years of parent-teacher conferences I'd attended, 12 years of neighbors and friends and coworkers who'd testify that I was a calm, present, involved father. Vanessa had photographs of herself with other men in other people's beds. The divorce was finalized 4 months after filing. I got the house, full custody of Derek. Lily's paternity was legally reassigned to Paul Decker, though I petitioned for and received continued parental rights as her psychological father. The judge noted in his ruling that removing Lily from the only father she'd ever known would cause more harm than the biological reality warranted. I was still her dad. Paul was required to pay child support to Vanessa for Lily, and I continued to have her every other week. The hardest conversation I've ever had in my life was telling Lily. We sat on the back porch, just the two of us, on a Sunday afternoon. She was 10 years old, with curly hair and dimples and a gap-toothed smile that could light up a stadium. She knew her mother and I were getting divorced. She knew things were different, but she didn't know why. I didn't tell her everything. She was too young for the full truth. I told her that her mom and I loved her very much but couldn't be married anymore. And I told her that no matter what happened, no matter what she heard from anyone, I was her dad, and that would never change. She crawled into my lap, something she hadn't done in 2 years because she considered herself too old for it. And she said, "Some kids at school said you're not my real dad. Kids say a lot of things that aren't true," I said. "But is it true?" I held her tighter. "I'm the one who taught you to ride a bike. I'm the one who sat with you when you had the flu and read you 4 Harry Potter books in a row. I'm the one who's going to be at every soccer game and every school play and every graduation from now until forever. So you tell me, am I your real dad?" She nodded into my chest. "Yeah, you are." That was the moment I came closest to breaking. Not when I found the text, not when the DNA came back, not during the divorce. This. My little girl, who wasn't mine by blood, choosing me anyway. 6 months after the divorce, I got a call from Terrence, the PI. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. "Craig Hollis, the mortgage broker your wife was seeing, his company just fired him. Turns out he was falsifying loan documents. The FBI is involved." "Vanessa sure knows how to pick them," I said. "There's more. Your ex-wife co-signed on 3 of those loans. Properties she was listing as a broker. It looks like they had a little side operation going. Inflate the property values, push through bad loans, split the commissions." I called Ray. He said it didn't affect our divorce settlement, but suggested I make sure my name wasn't on anything connected to Vanessa's brokerage. It wasn't. I'd never been involved in her business, never signed anything, never even visited her office more than twice. 6 months later, Vanessa was indicted for mortgage fraud along with Craig Hollis. She lost her broker's license. The case made the local news. My name wasn't mentioned, and I was grateful for that. Derek took it hard. He was 13 by then, old enough to understand what was happening, but too young to process it without anger. "She ruined our family," he said one night while we were cleaning up after dinner. "And now she's going to prison?" "She made choices," I said. "Bad ones. But she's still your mother. Why aren't you angry?" I was angry. For about a week. Then I decided that being angry at someone who doesn't care about your feelings is a waste of energy. He thought about that. "Is that why you didn't yell at her when you found out? Is that why you just handled it?" I handled it because yelling doesn't solve anything. Planning does. Evidence does. Keeping your head when everyone else is losing theirs. That's what solves problems. Derek nodded slowly. "I want to be like that." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You already are." Lily adapted better than anyone expected. She spent time with Paul and Jenna, who'd somehow managed to salvage their marriage through counseling and what I can only describe as an almost superhuman capacity for forgiveness on Jenna's part. Paul was trying to be a better man. I didn't trust him, but I didn't need to. Lily had 2 families now, and both of them loved her. A year after the divorce, I started seeing someone. Her name was Michelle, a veterinarian who brought her car to the shop where my buddy worked. She was quiet, funny, completely unimpressed by grand gestures, and pathologically honest. On our second date, she told me she'd been divorced too, that her ex had a gambling problem, and that she had trust issues the size of Montana. "Good," I said. "So do I." She laughed. "I guess we'll just have to be honest with each other then. That's the only thing I'm interested in." Michelle met the kids gradually. She didn't try to be their mom. She showed up, was kind, helped Derek with a school project about electrical circuits, and taught Lily how to bandage a dog's paw. She existed in our lives without pretending to be anything she wasn't. The last time I saw Vanessa was at Derek's 8th grade graduation. She'd gotten probation instead of prison time. Plea deal. She looked diminished, like someone had turned down her brightness. She sat 3 rows behind me and didn't try to make conversation. After the ceremony, Derek hugged us both separately. He was taller than Vanessa now, broader across the shoulders. My jawline, my build, my quiet intensity. He shook my hand after the hug, which was something new he'd been doing, like he was practicing being a man. "Thanks, Dad," he said, "for everything." Vanessa watched this exchange from a distance. Our eyes met briefly. I nodded. She nodded back. There was nothing left to say. That evening, Michelle and I sat on the back porch while the kids were inside arguing about what movie to watch. The fireflies were out, blinking their slow code across the lawn. The air smelled like cut grass and honeysuckle. "Do you ever regret it?" Michelle asked. "How you handled everything?" I thought about that. 12 years of marriage built on sand. 6 weeks of planning that saved my life. A daughter who isn't mine by blood, but is mine in every way that matters. A son who's learning that strength isn't about volume, it's about clarity. No, I said. I don't regret any of it. Not even the part where your whole life fell apart? My life didn't fall apart. The lie fell apart. My life was underneath it the whole time, waiting. She leaned her head against my shoulder. That's either the wisest thing I've ever heard or the saddest. Probably both, I said. The fireflies blinked on and off. Inside, Derek and Lily finally agreed on a movie. I could hear them laughing. That particular sibling laughter that sounds like an argument and a celebration at the same time. My house, my kids, my life. Not perfect, not painless, but real. Every wire in this house runs clean and true. I made sure of that when I built it. Turns out, that's all I ever wanted for the rest of my life, too. Clean lines, true connections, no hidden currents running where they shouldn't be. Vanessa thought I was the kind of man who'd never check the wiring. She was wrong. Checking the wiring is literally what I do for a living. And when I found the bad connections, I didn't panic. I didn't rip everything out in a rage. I mapped the whole system, identified every fault, and then I rewired the entire thing. That's not revenge. That's just good work.